Hello again everybody, back with another video. This time looking at the code of the Yorkshire Ripper. I've been meaning to do this for some time and I thought it would be interesting to look back at this event, which I can remember quite well, when I was well asleep and I believed everything I saw. Now, I'm not saying either way what I think this is, but I will point out lots and lots and lots of code, which you could argue is beyond a coincidence. And I will also play through this video 3 little sections of short takes from a fairly lengthy documentary on the Yorkshire Ripper, and I'll put the link to that YouTube video in the description. So let's move on and take a look. So we've got the alleged assailant or culprit called Peter William Sutcliffe, who was born on the 2nd of June 1946. So we've got a 2 and we've got a 6 months for 2 6s for 6 6. And he was also known as Peter William Coonan. Well, Coonan adds up in English to 62 for 2 6s for 6 6. And if we take a COO for Coo, that comes to 33. And he was convicted of murdering 13 women, so there's another one, and attempting to murder good old 7 others. And this was on the 22nd of May. So there's a 22 there, and there were 22 victims. And we'll see 22 crops up quite a lot. 13 murdered, 9 injured. And of course, 22nd of May is 22 plus 5 for 27, for 2 7s for 7 7. And he was apprehended on the 2nd of January 1981. Well, we've got a 2 and a 1 for 21, for, that should say 3 7s there for 7 7 7. And if we add the date up, a 2 and a 1 and a 1 and a 9 and an 8 and a 1, guess what we get? We get 22 again, and we'll see 22, which of course is a master number, appears many times in this Yorkshire Ripper story. So let's take a look at Peter Sutcliffe's name. And we saw 2 66s previously, but Peter Sutcliffe in Pythagorean is 66. And look at the consonant, 233 and 66. If we look at Peter William Coonan, that's 88 in Pythagorean numerology, which can be a number in its own right, but it can also be 2 8s for 16 for a 7. And Sutcliffe is 38 for 11, but look, we've got this again, the 233 and 66 there. We've also got a 21 here for consonants, which you could argue is 777. And William is actually 34 for a 7, and we've got 2 L's in William for our 33. Wherever you see names and they're using 2 L's quite often, it signifies 33. And if we look at Peter Sutcliffe in English, add them all up, we come to 165. So you could say that actually adds up to 12, which can be 21 for 777, or you could put the 1 and the 5 together and the 6 and make it a 66. But I think it's more 777 in this case. Now, this is Peter in his lorry look, and this is a famous photograph on the internet. And look at the registration, FHD 214S. FHD adds up to 18 in English, for 3 6s for 666. And if we add the 2 and the 4 and the S, which is 19, we get 26 again for another 66. And we've got FHD 214S in Pythagorean is 26 again for 66. Coincidence? Plenty of 22s, plenty of 66s associated with Peter Sutcliffe. And if we look at the full number plate in Chaldean numerology, it adds up to 27 for 2 7s for 77. Okay, so this is about him meeting his wife. You can read this is from Wikipedia. but he met her on the 14th of February, so we got 14 for 2 sevens for 7-7, and she suffered several for a 7 miscarriages. And then it goes on about his childhood and early adolescence. He showed signs of abnormality. Obviously, that was well documented somewhere. And of course, this is a well documented violent event. So I'm not going to call it fake YouTube, okay? So later, in part related to his occupation as a gravedigger, he developed an unhealthy, macabre sense of humour. Oh. And in his late adolescence, he developed a growing obsession with voyeurism and spent much time spying on prostitutes. They know a lot about this guy, don't they? Yeah? And I just put gravedigger in there. And of course, gravedigger comes to 67, so we've got a 6 and a 7. 67 is also 33 off 100, so it has a 33 potentially associated with it. If we look at his wife, Sonia, how do you say that? Sezerma. Sonia adds up to 58 for a 13. And a surname, I won't try and say that, adds up to 98. But that gives us a total for 156, which can be 66 or 21 for 777. And going back to Peter's marriage date, that was the 10th of August 1974. 10th of August, 10 plus 8 for 18. For 3 6s for 666. Okay, so this was Sutcliffe's first assault. He assaulted a prostitute he had met while searching for a woman who had tricked him out of money. And he left his friend Trevor Birdsall's minivan and walked up St Paul's Street in Bradford until he was out of sight. When he returned, he was out of breath, as if he'd been running. Well, did he leave his minivan or did he leave in it? And who reported the fact that he was out of breath? But if we look up Trevor Birdsall, Bird is 33 in English and Sol is 44. So 2 key numbers there. Add them up and what do you get? You get 77. And Trevor adds up to 98. So Trevor Birdsall adds up to 98 plus 77 for 175, so that can give us a 13, or it can give us a 17 plus 5 for 22 again. And Trevor Birdsall in Pythagorean comes to the same as the gravedigger, 67. Coincidence? Now his second assault was the 5th of July, so there's a 7 there, 5-7, and he attacked Anna Rigolski, whoever that means there, who was walking alone, striking her unconscious with a ball-peen hammer, and then he used a knife too, apparently. Anna, in both Chaldean and Pythagorean, is 12, reversed for 21 for 777. In both cases, and peen comes to 22 in Pythagorean, so there's our 22 again, and ball peen comes to 32. Now there are 32 levels in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, but it could also be 2 3s for 33. So we're well into the victims now. This one was Olive Smelt. Now maybe she did, I don't know, but bit of a pun in that name. Whether it was meant, who knows? Just a coincidence, and she just had an unfortunate surname. But that comes to 42 in Pythagorean, so we've got our 6s and 7s there. And Olive is 27 in Pythagorean for 2 7s for 7-7. But look what it is in Chaldean. We've got that 22 appearing again. So 22 seems to be throughout this story. And if we add up Olive in English, it comes to 63 for 3 6s for 666, and Smelt comes to 69. So we've got a 6 and a reverse 6, or an upside down 6 for 66. Lots and lots of Masonic code here. Now, we'll come to our first little video interlude. And as I said at the beginning, this is a compilation of short clips from a documentary video that's called Manhunt, the Yorkshire Ripper, and I've left a link in the description. It's very long, and I've picked out the little clips where I see code and other interesting things. So let's play that video now.
It was the biggest manhunt in British criminal history. 20 years on, detectives involved break their long silence to reveal how it ended for the police in humiliation and disgrace.
Even to this day, you're always thinking of what might have been, what you might have done, where you could have gone. Could you have done things any different?
I'll live with that for the rest of my life. I'll live with being a party to the wrong decision.
All along, the identity of the killer lay hidden in police files. Interviewed 9 times, lost in the system. Peter Sutcliffe, free to kill again. The first victim of the Yorkshire Ripper died within sight of the home she shared with her 4 young children. Her name was Wilma McCann. She was 28 years old and came from Scotland. She'd been hit over the head and stabbed 14 times.
Well, these are all of them ordinary tools that one will find around the house, but on examination of the injuries, at first, no clear pattern emerged. Subsequently, of course, it became obvious that a pattern was emerging of 2 or 3 heavy blows, usually to the back of the head.
This time, he took her behind the sports pavilion. This time, he left clearly identifiable tire marks. And this time, he killed her. She took him home to her flat. As she walked through the door, he attacked her with a hammer. Her name was Patricia Atkinson. She was 32. Her killer left a boot print on a blood-stained sheet. Forensic examination showed it was a size 7 Wellington. For Detective Superintendent Dick Holland, 4 years at the top of the Ripper hunt began here, on Sunday, the 27th of June, 1977. When 2 young children found the body lying face down in a corner of the playground. All the separate murder hunts now came together into one incident room under Assistant Chief Constable George Oldfield, West Yorkshire's top detective. All the police had to go on were the perfect tire prints found in the park where Irene Richardson died. Officers had established a list of 50,000 possible cars and spent 9 months trying to track them all down. A huge task, 3/4 completed when senior officers made a disastrous decision to abandon it. Manchester police traced the brand new £5 note recovered when a passerby found Jean Jordan's handbag. The note had been delivered in a bullion van to the Midland Bank branch in Shipley, near Bradford. The 2 clerks already knew the £5 note had come in a payroll consignment of £25,000 straight from the Bank of England. Now they had to work out who got it in his pay packet. It took them only 2 weeks to narrow it down to 34 local firms, employing a total of 8,000 people. Among them, a lorry driver called Peter Sutcliffe. Within weeks of the death of Jean Jordan, he was visited twice by Manchester detectives asking about the £5 note. His wife and his mother both gave him an alibi. They said the family had all been together at their housewarming party. On a cold December night in 1977, 25-year-old Marilyn Moore got into the Ripper's car.
They got out of the car, presumably to get into the back seat, when he struck her blows on the head with a hammer. As she slumped at the side of the car, another vehicle with a coupler came in and obviously disturbed his activities. So he jumped back in the car and sped off, turning to go towards the road and the exit across there. As a result, he left curved tyre marks rather like the ones you see on the ground behind me.
3 of the tyre marks were identical to those found near the bodies of Irene Richardson and Jean Jordan. Police sat Marilyn Moore in all 22 possible models of car. She picked out the Morris Oxford. She was wrong. It was a Ford Corsair. She did make a photo fit which was, with hindsight, astonishingly accurate. But then she started accusing innocent men. Police decided she was unreliable.
So, plenty of code there. Now, let's move on to the next victim. So this was on the 27th of August. So there's 27 for 77. And he attacked a 14-year-old girl. 14 for 2 sevens for 7-7 again. And that 14-year-old girl was Tracy Brown. And that was done in Silsden. Now, Brown is 27 for another 77 in Chaldean numerology. Tracy adds up to 67. There's that number again, 6 and 7. Linked to 42, also 33 off 100. And Brown adds up, would you believe, in English, to 77. So finding code in this event is like shooting turkeys in a turkey shoot. Not that I've ever done that, but I can imagine what it's like. Okay, so we move on to the first victim that lost their life. And look at this name. We've seen this name numbers of times in various well-documented violent events, haven't we? And I can think of one involving a young girl on a holiday. But this was the first victim, and this one was Wilma McCann. Wilma McCann in Pythagorean adds up to a 43 for a 7. McCann in both Pythagorean and Chaldean numerology adds up to 21, both for big 777s. And Wilma, guess what Wilma adds up to in Pythagorean numerology? There's our 22 again. Yeah, 22 victims, 22 appearing in lots and lots of these things. And also, moving down here, on the bottom left, we've got Wilma McCann, 36 in Chaldean, for a 3 6s for 666. And what does Wilma McCann add up to in English? Well, it adds up to 106. Ignoring the 0, 1 plus 6 for a 7. So one of the biggest coded names I've seen so far. So we're back on the next victim now, and he committed his next murder in Leeds in January 1976, and he stabbed, there's our 42-year-old Emily Jackson. So there is our son, and wherever you see the son in the name, it can mean to some people that this event isn't real. And this person was stabbed 52 times for our 7. So we've got a 42, we've got a son in the name, we've got a 52. Now looking up Jackson in Chaldean, and I did say 22 keeps coming up. The same number as the victims, look at this, 22 in Chaldean. And Emily Jackson in Chaldean is 36 for 3 6s for 666. Now, the next victim was Marcella Claxton, and Marcella has the double L, which in all, well, Pythagorean, Chaldean, L's 3, and in English it's 12, 1 plus 2 for a 3, it's a 33. And this was done on the 9th of May, and 9 and 5 is our 14 for our 7-7. 7s appear a lot, but look at Marcella in Chaldean. We've got our 22 yet again, and Marcella Claxton gives us our 55, master number in Pythagorean numerology. Now, another very coded name. So, on the 5th of February. So there's our 5 and 2 for a 7. He attacked and killed Irene Richardson. So there's the son again in the name. And this time he left tyre tracks, and that led the police apparently on some kind of hunt at the murder scene. And it gave a long list of possible suspect vehicles. Now Richardson gives us our 55 again in Pythagorean numerology. Richardson gives us, and we've always got to have this somewhere, at 33 for masonry in Chaldean numerology. Irene gives us 18 in Chaldean for 666. Irene Richardson gives us our 88 again for a 7. Okay, so, and that is in Pythagorean numerology. So there we go, we have lots and lots of code in these here names. So the next victim was the 23rd of April. So 23 plus 4 is 27 for 7-7. And this time he killed Patricia Tina Atkinson. Another one with a son in the name. And he actually left a boot print on the bedclothes. And this is where you'll see, guess what size the boot was? It was a size 7 boot. And this Patricia Tina Atkinson, PTA, in English, adds up to 37 for 3 7s for 777. Patricia Atkinson is 72 for 2 7s for 7-7. And Patricia is 777 because it adds up to 21 for 3 7s. So what have we got next? So we've got a 26th of June, so we've got 2 6s. And we've got a 6, so we've got 666 there. He murdered a 16-year-old, so there's our 7. And it was Jane MacDonald. Now, D-O-N is 33. You see numbers with D-O-N in? Quite often it's 33. MacDonald adds up to, would you believe, this 67 again, 33 off 100. Linked to 42, it's got main code 6 and 7 in. And Jane adds up to master number 55. And we've seen these numbers throughout so far. Now, this was a serious assault on Maureen Long. And it was July 7th, which is the 7th month in 1977. So in this date, we've got 777. We've got the EE, which can be in capitals, can be MM, or it can be reversed in capitals to 33. But let's take a look at Long. Long is 21 in Pythagorean numerology for 777, and Long is 18 in Chaldean. 4, 3 6s for 666. And Maureen adds up, would you believe, in English to 77. So 7s seem to be the predominant code in this well-documented violent event. So we're on to our video interlude part 2 now, just to give you a little break from me ranting on. Okay, so let's take a look.
And so the lorry driver from Bradford remained free. Under the pressure of running 6 difficult murder investigations in 2 years, the police were making mistakes, abandoning the tyre inquiry, ignoring the photo fits. In January 1978, the Yorkshire Ripper drove his Ford Corsair to Huddersfield, to the railway arches behind Garrard's timber yard, where the town's prostitutes worked.
Just bad luck.
Without modern computers, the deluge of information had to be catalogued and indexed by hand.
The wheel became full, then we had to move to these wooden boxes, and they were filed in, well, still in the alphabetical order of surname in the boxes. One drawer here with, I don't know, there'll be upwards of 1,000 cards in, I'd say, and we've got 138 of these boxes.
7 dead now, there was a public appeal to help raise a £30,000 reward. The Yorkshire Ripper did choose an older victim when he crossed the Pennines again in May 1978. Her name was Vera Millward, and she was the mother of 7 children. Police followed up thousands of sightings, among them a red Ford Corsair, registration number PHE355G. Its owner, Mr. Peter Sutcliffe, of 6 Garden Lane, Heaton, Bradford. Sutcliffe was interviewed for the 3rd time in August 1978. His car had been seen 7 times in the red light areas of Leeds and Bradford. He told the police he was on his way to work, and his wife said they rarely went out at night. The killer of Josephine Whittaker left behind some excellent clues. Another set of size 7 boot prints, this time clearly showing the right boot more worn than the left. And forensic scientists identified globules of engineering oil in the blood from some of her 25 stab wounds. A man with size 7 boots and a gap in his teeth. A man with oil on his hands and one boot more worn than the other. An engineer, a factory worker, a lorry driver. Peter Sutcliffe won 18 more months of freedom, and 3 more women died. 4 years in to the hunt for the Yorkshire Ripper, the police were no closer to catching the killer. People in West Yorkshire began to lose faith in the police. Three more women were to die. 3 women whose brutal deaths might have been prevented, but for fatal mistakes made by the police during the biggest manhunt in British criminal history. A black sunbeam rapier was seen twice in Leeds, once in Manchester, and 36 times in Bradford. The police national computer revealed the name of its registered keeper, a Mr. Peter Sutcliffe. In July 1979, Detective Sergeant Andrew Laptew was still a constable. He was sent on a routine assignment to interview the driver.
We were always told that it could be the next door you knock upon, the next phone call you get. So you went to that house with an open mind.
The next door DC Laptew knocked on was number 6 Garden Lane, Heaton, in Bradford. Home of Peter Sutcliffe, a man of 33 with a Bradford accent, and his wife Sonia.
He had too many uncanny links with what we knew. There was a gap in his teeth. His shoe size fitted the suspect's shoe size. Both my colleague and myself, when we left the house, sort of looked at each other and said, "We're not happy with this man."
I'm afraid it's back to me again now, folks, talking about code. And we've got the next victim, which was the 1st of October 1977. And Sutcliffe murdered Jean Jordan. So look, we've got the same initials, which some people believe are associated with hoaxes. Not saying whether I do, but some people do. But we've got Jean Jordan. And it said in confessions, Sutcliffe said he had realised the new £5 note he had given her was traceable, and he had to go back apparently and do all kinds of things. I don't know the full story, but let's just look at the code. So we've got Jean here. He's 12 in Pythagorean numerology, and it's also 12 in Chaldean numerology, a little bit like Anna was, I think one of the first ones. And 12 can be reversed for 21 for 777, and the same here. And we've got Jean Jordan gives us 32 in Chaldean. 32, as we said, can be 32 levels of the Scottish Rites of Freemasonry, or it could be 2 3s for 33. Now Jean adds up to 30 in English, and Jordan adds up to 62. Now that comes to 92. Now that could be 911, or potentially it could be, if this is a reverse 6, it could be 2 6s for 66. I think it's probably the 911, but we'll move on, because this 92 appeared, or will appear, because I'm not quite sure which order I'm putting these videos in the actual video, and I have either highlighted that or I will highlight it. Okay, so linked to this Jean Jordan murder, we've got the body was discovered by a guy called Bruce Jones on the 9th of October. So 9th of October 77 is 9 plus 10 plus 7 plus 7. 9 plus 24 gives us 33 for masonry. And apparently Bruce Jones had an allotment on the land adjoining the site where the body was found, and he was searching for house bricks. So remember the very first slide of this presentation where I got Peter Sutcliffe outside a Masonic brick wall? There, could this be a Masonic link? And he found a £5 note as well, apparently, and that was all linked to tracing this banknote and somehow led in a way to them finding out who he was and everything. But Jones is 63 in English for 666. Jones is 18 in Pythagorean for 3 6s for 666. Jones is 21 in Chaldean for 3 7s for 7 7. And look what Bruce adds up to, guys. There's our 22 again. So 22 seems to be Peter's number. Of course, we got lots of 7s as well. Now, on the 14th December, he attacked Marilyn Moore. So there's an M and an M. Turn these round 90 degrees. We've got 33, but we've also got the same initials. Again, we've got the 14th of December. So we've got 14 for 7 7. If we add 14 and 12, and I've only just seen this, I missed it originally. 14 and 12 gives us 26 for our 2 6s for 66 again. We've seen that number a lot. Now let's take a look at some of the code here in the calculators. We've got Marilyn Moore in Pythagorean, gives us 68 for a 14 for 2 7s for 77. In Chaldean, Marilyn Moore is 42 again. We've seen that. And a 6 and a 7. And Moore in Chaldean is 25 for 2 plus 5 for a 7. Also, Marilyn in English gives us that 92 number again. And Moore gives us 66. We've seen that number quite a lot. It was here in the date, and now it's here. And the total is 158. That adds up, of course, to 1 plus 5 for a 6 and 8 for a 14 for 2 7s for 77. So yet more code. It's almost a code video for every victim in this. So quite a lot of work in analysing this lot. Okay, so Sutcliffe killed again. His victim was Yvonne Pearson. We've done it again, another son. And this time a 21-year-old. 21, of course, for 3 7s for 777. And Pearson is 88 in English for our 7, and it's a master number. And Yvonne is 95 in English for 9 plus 5 for 14 for 7 7. So if we look at the name in English, we've got a 7 for Pearson and a 7 7 for Yvonne. So we've got 7 7 7. And Yvonne Pearson in Pythagorean gives us our 66 again. and Yvonne Pearson is 60 for a 6. Okay, so 10 days later he killed Helen Ritka, an 18-year-old sex worker. 18 for 3 sixes for 666. And a body was found 3 days later beneath railway arches. Now, I'm sure if you haven't, but most people have heard of the Royal Arch Masons. So is this one of our links? And we'll see, or you will have seen in part of the video, the railway arches. Helen is 44 in English. Ritka is 75. So that comes up for 12, for 221, for 777. And all the total names, we had 44 and 75 for the total. We get 119 for 911. And Helen Ritka in Chaldean, and I'm using the Y as a consonant, but it doesn't really matter. It's comes out the same. And that basically comes out to 33 in Chaldean for masonry. And Helen Ritka is 47, which can give us an 11. And it can give us 7777, 4 sevens. So we still go on, guys. I'm sorry about this. But on the 16th of May, 1975, Sutcliffe killed Vera Millwood. So we've got our 2 L's there for our 33. And 1 plus 6 here for 16 is a 7. If we add the 5, it gives us 21 for 777. Also, 1 plus 6 plus 5 is 12 for 21 for 777 again. And Vera in Chaldean, guess what that comes to? 77, 2 sevens for 77. And Millwood, look what Millwood adds up to, guys. It adds up to 92 again. That number. Okay, so on the 4th of April 1979, Sutcliffe killed Josephine Whittaker, a 19-year-old building society clerk. And if we look at Josephine Whittaker, guess what that comes to? In Chaldean, it comes to 66. And Josephine Whittaker in Pythagorean comes to this 88 again. Do you see a pattern? Do you see the same numbers coming up all the time? And Josephine, this 47 number, which is an 11, and it's 7777. And in consonants, it's got 22. Now, Josephine is 101 in English. Room 101, we've seen that number a lot. Whittaker is 95 in English for 14 for 77. And the full name adds up to 196. Add those numbers, we get 16, again for a 7. So 7s do hold their own. There's lots of 6s. There's 22s. Okay, so now we're moving on to the fake Yorkshire Ripper, or Wearside Jack as he was known. So Wearside Jack sent 2 letters to the police and the Daily Mirror in March 1978, boasting of his crimes. On the 20th of October, John Samuel Hubble was charged with attempting to pervert the course of justice. Okay, so we have John Samuel Humble. Now, his initials are JSH. They add up in English to 37 for 777. And the last person that was mentioned, I think, was Patricia Tina Atkinson. And her initials added up to 37 too for 777. Okay, so also John Samuel Humble, or Wearside Jack as he was known, has Sam in it. Samuel, or Sam short for that. That adds up to 33. So very interesting. And Humble was remanded in custody on the 21st of March. So that's 21 for 777. And 2 plus 1 and a 3 for 3 and 3 for 33. Okay, so plenty of code there. Humble died on the 30th of July. 30 plus 7 for 37 for 777. 3 sevens, of course. And he was 63, 3 sixes for 666. Wearside Jack, which was his nickname, added up in Chaldean to 34 for a 7. Wearside in Chaldean, 27 for 2 sevens for 77. And Jack in Chaldean and also in Pythagorean adds up to 7 in both. John Humble, missing Sam out, is 43 for a 7. Samuel, and we've got our number again here, look, is 22 in Chaldean, so 22 appears. And Humble is 7 in both Chaldean and Pythagorean numerology. Humble is also 61 in English for a 7. So we have massive amounts of code in the fake Jack. So I suppose if you believe this is a hoax, these are hoax letters and hoax tapes. Quite interesting, that one. But let's move on. Okay, so now a little break from me droning on about code, and we'll have a look at the last little video clips containing code and interesting events.
2 years earlier, when Jean Jordan was killed in Manchester, police had found a brand new £5 note in her handbag. They failed to trace who had given it to her. Manchester police now tried again and made a crucial breakthrough. They managed to narrow down the list of workers whose pay packet could have included that note from 8,000 people to just 241. After 4.5 years, the hunters had their quarry within reach, because lorry driver Peter Sutcliffe was employee number 76 on that list. In the first few weeks of the new year, 1980, Peter Sutcliffe was interviewed for the 7th, 8th and 9th times. That summer, he was stopped for speeding and arrested for being drunk in charge. The arresting officer checked with the Ripper incident room and was informed that Peter Sutcliffe had been eliminated from the inquiry. He killed again in August. This time, he chose an ordinary housing estate. His victim, a teenage mother. She'd walked 100 yards to the shops for a packet of cigarettes and was on her way home to her baby and her boyfriend. Her name was Teresa Sykes. She was 16 years old, and she survived.
And then the next door neighbour came out. Mum took me in the house, and I still didn't realise I was really hurt until I actually got in and saw blood.
How close to home were you?
My home's there, I can see it from here.
It was January the 2nd, 1981, and 2 officers from the South Yorkshire Police were on routine night patrol.
I got out of the car, approached the driver, asked him his name and address. He actually gave me false details. Sergeant Ring approached the female occupant of the car, had a conversation with them. We then did a PNC check on the vehicle, the number plates that were displayed. That came back as a Skoda car, and obviously the one that they were in was a Rover. I then arrested the driver of the vehicle, who I later found out was, when we got back to the station, was Peter William Sutcliffe.
Sutcliffe said he needed to urinate, so the 2 Sheffield policemen let him go in a corner. And then they took him back to their police station under arrest for stealing number plates.
I got the impression that he wanted to get out of the police station as quickly as possible. On and off, I spent about 8 hours with him in this room. There was a photo fit of the Yorkshire Ripper on the filing cabinet in here, which depicted a man with black hair, beard, moustache, very much like Peter Sutcliffe actually. Very good photo fit.
They had a suspect who wore size 7 boots and had a gap in his teeth. Next day, the 2 Sheffield policemen went back to the place where they'd made the arrest. They looked behind the oil tank where they'd let their suspect urinate. And there, one of them found what they'd missed before, a hammer.
He was saying that it could belong to the handyman because there was an oil tank at the side of where it was. And that's when I stood on the wall and shone the torch down and said, well, the hammer might belong to him, but who does the knife belong to? And after that, we knew that the person we'd arrested was the man who was commonly known as the Yorkshire Ripper.
On the 22nd of May 1981, the jury delivered its majority verdict. The Ripper was bad, not mad. Guilty of 13 murders and 7 attempted murders.
Okay, so this is the last bit. If you can stay with this video for this length of time, this is the last bit you have to deal or listen to me going on about code again. But we'll continue with murders, because Sutcliffe murdered 20-year-old Barbara Leach. And this was a Bradford University student, apparently. And a body was dumped at the rear of 13 Ashgrove. 13 Ashgrove, 36 in Chaldean, for 666, 3 sixes. And it was hidden under a pile of bricks. Plenty of bricks around, apparently, to bury bodies, but there we go. So there's the bricks reference, the bricks, Masonic brick wall. Barbara is 7 in Pythagorean, it's 25 for 2 plus 5 for a 7. Barbara is 43 in English for a 7. A Leach is 29 in English, so there's our 92 again. And the name adds up to 72. 43 and 29 for 2 sevens for 7 7. So yet again coded. Okay, so apparently Sutcliffe was arrested for drunk driving. They'd had lots and lots of leads. It was him. Even got him for drunk driving, but he was awaiting trial. He went out and he killed 2 more women. He murdered 47, so there's our 47, 4 sevens for 7 7 7 7, or 11, and it was Marguerite Walls. So here's our walls reference, our brick walls, Masonic walls, and walls has the double L in it for 33, and this was the night of the 20th of August, so it's a 28 there. Could say 4 sevens for 7 7 7 7. Walls, as we say, is a 7, but it's also got 6 and 3 3 3 in the consonants. That's in Chaldean numerology. Okay, so Margaret Walls is 67. We've seen that number a lot for 6 and 7s. Marguerite in Chaldean is bang on. The Masonic wall with a hammer, 33 for Masonry. Marguerite, which you believe is 117 in English, or Margaret. It's Margaret, I think. I think I'm spelling it. I'm pronouncing it wrong. Margaret is 117 in English for 77, and Walls is 67 in English, would you believe? So we've got Margaret Walls is 67 in Pythagorean, Walls is 67 in English, and the name adds up to 184 for a 13. So we have plenty of code with Margaret Walls. Okay, so now we've got Jacqueline Hill. So he murdered 20-year-old Jacqueline Hill, a student at Leeds University, on the night of the 17th of November. So I suppose you've got 17 and 11 there for for 28, 4 sevens. We've got Jacqueline Hill, Pythagorean, is 66. Seen that a lot. Jacqueline Hill in Chaldean is 43 for a 7. Jacqueline's 43 for a 7 in Pythagorean. And Hill's body was found in the grounds of Lupton Residences. Now, Lupton is 33 in Chaldean numerology for masonry. Jacqueline is 97 in English for 16 for a 7. Hill is 41 English in English, and the name adds up to 138 for a 12. Reverse that for 21 for 3 sevens for 777. Code, code, code. Okay, so what I've tried to do here is combine the last 3 attacks, and they all apparently survived. So first one was Uphadia Bandara, and this was the 24th of September, 24 and 9, 33 for masonry. Maureen Lee, known as Mo, an art student, attacked in the grounds of Leeds University on the 25th of October. So we got 2-5 for a 7, and a 16-year-old for a 7 again, Teresa Sykes. And this was the night of the 5th of November, so there's a 5 and 11 for 55 there. Look at this first one here, adds up to 42 in Chaldean. We've got 6 and 7 again. The Bandara adds up to 16 for a 7. Maureen Lee adds up to 777. Teresa is a 7 because he adds up to 25. And then in English, the first one adds up, the first name, Uphadia, adds up to 76. So we've got a 7 and 6 again, 13. And the surname, Bandara, adds up to 41. But the full name, if you add those together, comes to 117, 11 sevens for 77. So this should say full name code. Maureen Lee, first name Maureen, 59 for 14 for 77. Surname 18, that's Lee, for 3 6s for 666. And the full name, would you believe, adds up for 77 for 77 code. Teresa Sykes, first name 76 again, 7 and 6. That's 13 and our 7 and our 6. Surname 79, that's 16 for a 7. The full one adds up to 155. Now I don't know any code there, but I've got code there in most of them. So that's summarised all the last 3 victims. So I'd just like to highlight a photograph here showing this shoe. Could argue in one of the least stable positions, but this has just fallen off and it's upright apparently. I think the body or something was over this way. But we see in many well-documented violent events a single shoe sat on the pavement or wherever it is. Now this is symbolic of a physical confirmation of a spoken deed or act in Freemasonry. It's a very significant, I think one of the terms is called the blue slipper of Freemasonry or something like that. But that's its general meaning, and you'll see that not only in this event, but many other well-documented violent events. And we've got here, on the 25th of November, Trevor Birdsall, an associate of Sutcliffe, reported him to the police as a suspect, but the information vanished in the paperwork already accumulated. Could you imagine that? They open the letter and a guy that knows him says, it's him, and it gets lost. A little hard to believe, but 25th of November, 25 and 11 for 36, for 3 6s for 666. And this is a big poster spreading fear about the Ripper, can you help? And the phone number 0532 464 111 adds up to 27, would you believe, for 77. And this is the Yorkshire Ripper himself being apprehended in his size 7 shoes. And look at this number plate here. This is not as clear as this one, but it's 772. So we've got 2 7s for 77 and a 7 for 777, would you believe? And apparently on the 16th of July 2010, the High Court issued Sutcliffe with a whole life tariff, meaning he's unlikely ever to be released. So there's 1 + 6 for a 7 and a 7 for 77. So code right to the very end. And that brings us to the end. I'm sorry about the length of this video, folks. You can see it's rammed full of Freemasonic code, like many well-documented events. So you can make up your mind whether you think this is a hoax or whether you think it's real. Or it's a real hoax, whatever you feel. You probably know what I feel, but I'm not going to say anything on here, because if I mention that 4-letter word beginning with H and ending with X and say I think it is, that's like saying and shouting out, hate, hate, because that's hate speech apparently, and I wouldn't want to do that. So I'll sit on the fence and I will say thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and before I say goodbye, I wish everybody a happy new year. So goodbye.